One of the things that's helped us too is we have a timeline that's laid out, and we know like, hey, we're gonna hit these marks. I had a coach because we were toying with the idea of like, hey, do we like have this kind of optional date? Like, hey, depending on how many people are on our team, we might scoot it back, like whatever. He said, man, like you just need to make the hard date, and like then you work towards it, and your team will work towards it, and you guys will get there. But if you keep scooting it back, you'll never make it. Hard dates, they help.
Something about that deadline makes you do a lot more than you thought you could.
Date it, define it, do it.
I love that right there. Welcome. My name is Najar, better known as Wuzi, and this is the Creative Balance Show presented by Wuzi Apparel. A show where we sit with creatives, hustlers, entrepreneurs, and other brand builders to understand their stories and the balance needed for their success. Well, I want to welcome in the Creative Balance Show. We're here in Old Soul in Oak Park, Sacramento. Shout out to Evan. His name is Evan, right?
Heaven?
Evan,
Yes.
Shout out to Evan for allowing us to use this spot. Yeah, let's get into it. I want you, how about you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Caleb. Should I give my last name? My name's Caleb Crenshaw, and my wife and I are planting a church here in Oak Park called the Hope Community. We're launching in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, 11 days.
September 18th.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Around the corner.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
Pumped, nervous, not really nervous. I'm pumped. What would be the word? Focused and probably a little bit stressed. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of things to do. But, you know, we're doing good.
I would say, like, what is, like, what's something, is there, like, a random thought that keeps, like, trailing you when you think about it? Like, maybe something that's, like, it's like you shouldn't worry about that part, but you just keep thinking about it?
No, like, not so much that. It's more like, holy crap, it's 11 days. That's usually what goes through my mind. I'm like, holy crap, like, 10 days, you know, like, that's coming up.
How long, you said, I remember you said it was over 2 years process?
Yeah. So we started out, I mean, if you really want to trace it back, this whole thing started in 2019.
Okay.
And so, like, it was like March of 2019 was when, like, I started feeling like, dude, this is, I think maybe we should plant a church.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like, if we really like trace it all the way back, we're at like close to 3 years now.
Okay. Is it like is that a blur? It has to be
it's more than 3 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it is a blur. Yeah, like it's 3.5 years. Yeah, no, it's the amount of change that can happen in your life in 3 years is unreal.
Yeah.
Like we look oftentimes at life and we're like, we underestimate what we can accomplish in like 10 years, 5 years. We overestimate what we can do in a year. Mm-hmm. And so, like, our scales are always off. Mm-hmm. And the amount of change, like, if we are leaning into something that can take place in our life in the course of, you know, a couple years and 3 years is absolutely unreal.
I guess I can only imagine, like, just when I first met you and hearing you saying you're going to, like, launch a church, for me it's like the thought of, like being a pastor in the existing church is already crazy, but like how about we start a whole new one from scratch? Is like, where do you even like start? So I thought that was it says a lot. I think it says a lot about you, but also like that's an admiring thing because I don't think too many people would do it that way. Like, how about you go start one? I'll stay here.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, it's you know, there's on the practical level, we did the same thing. Like when we were like, hey, this is it, we were literally like, man, how do you do this? Mm-hmm. You know, because we didn't know how to start a church. But that's a piece of like kind of going back is like when that moment in like 2019, someone had handed me a book and it was called Launch. It was a book on church planting. Mm-hmm. And I was a youth pastor at the time.
Okay. And
I had been at this church. We'd been in youth ministry for over a decade.
Okay.
At a few different places. And there was a guy kind of over church planting for our denomination that had come by. He was at an event that we were hosting. And he said, hey, what do you think is after youth ministry? And I was like, I don't know, man. I'm not trying to think about that right now,
Future? What's that?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, we might, take over an existing church and like revitalize a church or something, go to a church that's really struggling, help turn it around.
Okay.
Because we've been in a lot of like turnaround contexts for churches. Anyways, he handed me this book. He said, everybody who reads this book ends up planting a church.
Yeah.
And I'm up for a challenge. I'm like, dude, I'm going to be the guy who proves you wrong.
Yeah.
So I start reading the book. And as I'm reading, I'm like, man, this is like a really great way to reach people who wouldn't otherwise show up to a church.
Okay.
They wouldn't show up to a church building, an established church. That would be like too intimidating for them. But they'll show up to a random like location that a church is meeting at for this new church that like seems to be breaking some conventional norms.
Okay.
And then not having a building kind of puts us on this way of living that is, it's more connected and it's less walled in.
Okay.
And so in all of that, we started seeing that, and they talked through like strategy of how to launch a church. I was like, dude, we could do this.
Yeah.
Like, this is a great way to reach people who wouldn't show up to a church.
Yeah.
To help, like, to tell them about Jesus. And this is something we could actually do. Like, it's doable. And so from that, I just began to like thinking about it, doing research, kind of like you do when you're thinking like, hey, maybe I should do something different in my life. Started doing a bunch of research, staying up late, doing all the stuff that you do. And anyways, long story short, that kind of like pushed us into that path.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to get into that a little bit later, because I definitely want to go deeper into that process, because it's funny that, you don't think about church as like a project or like a almost like starting a business, but it's like that same concept. You got the, has those different steps, and you like, just like you were excited, like people want to start a business or they got an idea, they like stay up all night and research it. So it's crazy to see that same like through line. Yep. But I want to get to know who Caleb actually is, like who is Caleb? So I want to ask you first, where are you from?
I'm from Oakdale. Oakdale, bud. That's what we say locally. Oakdale, bud. Oakdale, yeah. So that's where I grew up. It's a town outside of the city of Modesto in California. It's like 30 minutes out of Modesto, and it's known as the cowboy capital of the world.
Cowboy capital?
That's true. Yeah.
Of the world.
Of the world. That's what they say. Now,
wow.
How true it is, I don't know.
Like Oakdalians say that, or like people?
Oakdale people. Yeah. Okay. We actually have a cowboy museum.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Hershey factory used to be there as well.
Oh wow.
So there's a chocolate festival. These are random facts about my small town.
Yeah, that sounds like a reason to go to Oakdale.
They still got it. They got it.
Chocolate festival?
Yeah.
When is it?
I don't know, man. It's like
in
May or something.
May?
Yeah, it's like around that time. Let's go next year. Let's go.
I'm looking into that. Sounds really fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It is fun. But yeah, so Oakdale, and it's just a little small town, and cowboy capital of the world is because, hey, re-steer me, by the way, if I'm spending too much time on something. Okay. Cowboy capital of the world is because we have a bunch of rodeo champions.
Okay.
That have come out of our town, like a ridiculous amount of rodeo champions.
You know their names?
Not a one.
Nothing wrong with that. So how you were born and raised there, or?
Yep. I was there, lived there until I was 22.
Okay.
I believe. And when I finished my college program, then I moved to the Bay Area to become a youth pastor. So.
Okay. So how was it growing up in a town like Oakdale?
I mean, it was cool. Oakdale's got a culture, It's small town vibes a little bit. Definitely has a culture. We lived in Oakdale, but by second grade, I went to school in Modesto.
Okay.
And so really had like kind of like that split kind of life where like church was like Oakdale people, and then all my friends, aside from my like church friends, all my school friends and stuff were all Modesto.
Okay.
So I had a unique Oakdale experience.
Okay. Yeah. Are you still attached to those people now?
Some of them, the church friends, not so much the school friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I remember you telling me you had some friends that were in Oakdale too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, those are my church friends.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
does that group have a name?
Nah. No, we don't have like a cool name.
No.
That'd be pretty dope if we did though. We got to go back to the drawing board.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. I'm gonna call them up.
Okay. How was Oakdale? Is Oakdale like a religious place?
There's a lot of churches. I don't know what like the per capita, like I guess per capita would be the wrong, but I don't know what the percentages are, you know.
What did you say in your personal life? I mean, I know you said a lot of people in your personal life were religious, but was it mostly people you see like, oh, okay, God fearing?
Yeah, I mean it's a really conservative town, and so you figure when you picture like small town America, like that was kind of the feel. So I was like 16,000 people when I was growing up. I think now it's probably around like 30. Like it's grown a lot.
Okay.
But so you kind of had that vibe of like it was very protected. Everybody knew everybody. My like kind of adopted grandpa was our pastor, and when he passed away, there was like a parade through the city, through the town, not the city.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, but like the church was 60 people. But he had been there forever and just invested, and so like, there is these maybe religious pieces, right? Like everyone's attached to the church in some way.
Okay.
And so part of the fabric of a smaller community. But as far as like, hey, everybody's showing up at church and like devout and serving Jesus, like that wasn't necessarily the case.
Okay. I can understand that. That's pretty cool. I just wonder because, when I think of Oakdale, I do think about like, the same school that you go to is the same school that your mom and dad went to. And then, like town like that. Is it?
Yeah. I mean, there's probably 3 elementary schools or something like that.
Oh, wow.
You got one junior high, Oakdale Junior High, and then you have Oakdale High. And Oakdale High is known for football and their ag program.
Okay.
And like, it's like, it's small town. Like, yeah.
That's pretty neat. So from high, you say you left at 22 and then you went to, is that before or after you went to college?
That was after college.
After college, you went to college in
Modesto.
And what college was that?
So it's a fun fact. I went to one college that changed its name 3 times and was acquired by 3 different schools while I was there.
Oh, wow.
It started off as like, I think it was a Global Bible Institute.
Okay.
And then it became Champions College.
That sounds pretty cool.
And like kind of went up in accreditation. So kind of an interesting name, but whatever.
Yeah.
And then it was acquired by the King's University. That was located down in Van Nuys, but it became like a satellite campus of that. And actually, before I graduated, they invited me to be a part of their next merger, which was with SCU, Southeastern University. But I would have had to take on another like 16 credits. I was like, dude, I've already paid this much. I'm not gonna take more classes. Like I'm done.
I don't want to be here no more.
yeah, I'm ready to be done. And it's the same accreditation level. So so I just went ahead and finished out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it? I know you said you went. That was a Bible college, right?
Yes, Bible college. So that's a part of the program, and then the internship basically like it was a part of the youth ministry. At least the part of the internship that I joined. So so what had happened was I was in a band in high school and like traveling and stuff, and I'd gone to a bunch of different like Christian universities to check them out. Like, hey, where do I want to go? I knew that I wanted to be in ministry in some capacity, and I thought maybe it would be like music would be a part of that. And so I was looking at like colleges that had good music programs and good theology programs, and none of them felt right, like for different reasons.
Okay.
And so I ended up with like really no options, and I'm in this traveling band playing like indie music, long hair, cargo shorts.
What instrument?
Drums.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it was fun time. And so anyways, we were at this venue, and at this point I had like missed registration for the junior college that was our town, and my mom's gonna kill me.
Gotta figure something out now.
Yeah, I gotta figure something out. And so I was like, well, I don't know. I was like, dude, I don't know. I'm gonna have to like, I don't know. I didn't know what I was gonna do. Yeah. And we're at this venue and we're playing, and I meet this dude who is a part of this program at a church in Modesto.
Okay.
And a large church there. And so I was like, man, I want to like let's talk about it or whatever. And he's like, bro, this program's amazing, like all this stuff. So when I realized that I was out of options, I called him up. I said, hey, bro, I want to hear more about this program. So we grabbed coffee over at Starbucks in Oakdale, and then I ended up going to the church and meeting like the youth pastor and stuff. And I was like, hey, this seems pretty cool because I could take. They ran a venue, a music venue, where it was like Friday nights. They called it the Underground, and there would be like hundreds of kids that would show up. And the team that helped to run it would like tell the kids about Jesus and offer prayer and like build relationships with these kids that are like scene kids. And so
nice.
Yeah,
shout to scene
kids, baby. and I love the scene, and obviously we played, and so I was like, man, like this would be cool to go and practice like telling people about Jesus at concerts, and then I'll go hit the road with my band for a few years, and I'll just like witness to people about Jesus while I take college classes online.
This is like looking at this like plan on the outside, like this sounds like a really dope like book. Like the traveling like drummer who's also in his spare time does ministry is like,
yeah, it's dope.
Exactly. Like I would relate to that person more than anybody.
That was my game plan for life, and I was like, and then at some point, you know, maybe I'll like go into full-time ministry, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude. So then I joined the program. And like the game plan was just spend a year and then go off and travel, and ended up actually just staying for the whole program, and just felt like God kind of put a choice before me. He was like, hey, like you can do the music thing if you want, or you could do like ministry, but you can't really do both. And that was just the sense of my heart, and I felt like there would be more blessing like in ministry. I felt like what he was saying to my heart was like, hey, you could do both, and I'm going to bless you either way. Like, you're going to be all right. But there's going to be a different type of blessing if you say yes to ministry. And I was like, well, if I'm not dumb. Like, God, if you said that that's more blessed, I'm in. Like, and so kind of like gave up music and put myself full in for ministry and helping people and, you know, leading people to Jesus.
How did I know it's a random question, but like, how did the band take it when you're like?
They were bummed.
Yeah.
You know, like we were actually like just on the verge of kind of a breakthrough.
Oh.
Of course, in a band like that, you're always on the verge of a breakthrough.
This next one is it, man.
Yeah. We had gotten an agent, and like we got connected with like the guy who recorded Colby Calais' album. And like got her discovered, and so like that was like scheduled, and I said, guys, like I love y'all, and like I wish I could be a part of this, but like I know that this other thing's what I want to do, and so I left like 2 weeks before we went down to LA to record, and I missed the opportunity. Yeah.
Wow. So let me ask you one last question on that situation then, because I think most people faced with that, you know, that's a tough circumstance to be faced with.
Yeah.
How you know, you speak about it now, you know, with hindsight, but how in that moment do you remember how
I was
going through it? Yeah.
I was crushed, dude.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was hard. I mean, you know, like these are the opportunities that you hope that someday you can get, and like this is like a 1% opportunity. Like not everybody gets to do this kind of thing, and so like I mean it's a pretty special kind of thing. But and I'll say this, for a couple years, I would watch the band. Like every time they play somewhere, I'd be like, oh,
like
shoot,
hands
I could
in the
be
window.
there.
That's supposed to be me. Who's that new drummer?
Yeah. They released the album, you know, the EP, and I was like, oh, I could have been on that, you know, like. So there was like those moments, but like, you know, there comes a point where like in our lives, like we have to make hard choices.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I think I heard it recently. Someone was talking about like, hey, like what separates the good leaders from the great leaders is the ability to say no.
Okay.
And it's what we can say no to.
Okay.
And so like, if I would have had kind of this split, I don't know, like in that season, music was requiring a lot of me, and so was ministry.
Yeah.
So I was putting in like 100 hours a week for a while, like, and that's not an exaggeration. Like literally between my job, the band, and internship, it was 100 hours a week, and so like my body was tore up, and so like I probably could have kept doing it. I was 19 at the time, so I probably could have kept doing it for a little while longer.
Yeah. But
like, you know, what does that do to your mental health? What does that do, you know, all that kind of stuff. I think the Lord was sparing me that before I got there.
Exactly.
You know.
Okay. Nice. I think, yeah, that's a gem for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Can you imagine being faced with making a decision like that? Having two things that you love to do, but ultimately understanding that by choosing one, it will yield better results than dividing time amongst both. It's important to note that Caleb didn't feel like it was impossible to do both the band and ministry. It was a feeling that he received from God that he would be more blessed to focus on ministry than to continue to split time between each other. I also want you to think about the time he decided to make the decision. His group was on the brink of something big. They had a meeting lined up with the agent who had already successfully launched an artist. Caleb said it best. These are the opportunities that you wish for. Being faced with that kind of choice, where you see the possible upside of one decision, or you trust in your gut, or in this situation, his faith, and choose to focus on what you're truly passionate about. These are tough circumstances, but nonetheless, he was able to make the decision that was best for him in the end. The lesson here is while it's possible to do multiple things at once, if we take the time to reflect and listen to our intuition, we'll begin to clearly see what will bring us the most fulfillment and fruit in the long run. So at that, you leave that and then you go to Bible college.
Yeah.
And then,
well, I was already in Bible college.
oh, you're in Bible college while doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why I was hitting like 100 hours a week. It's because I was doing both.
Okay. Okay.
Plus working, my part-time job at the same time.
Okay. So now at 22, you graduate Bible college. How was that? How was Bible college as an experience?
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. So I got my AA at 22, and actually, technically, I got it like 24 because there were some outstanding credits. It gets complicated, but like whatever.
Yeah.
But like Bible college was cool. I mean, I had like the Bible Institute into Bible college into university kind of experience.
Because the mix.
So the quality of the teaching went up consistently.
That's actually like a cheat code.
Yeah. I saved a lot of money.
Yeah.
It was unintentional, but I saved a lot of money.
Yeah, I bet.
I was able to graduate debt-free.
Wow.
But
Congratulations.
yeah, I mean, that's like, come on, dude, from a private
major.
university. I got a private university degree.
Private
debt-free.
Christian university at that, like,
bro.
Fresno Pacific and Fresno is expensive.
For $50,000 a year or something like that.
Yeah.
At this point, it's probably around 45. When I was looking, it was 26 plus room and board, took it up to like 36 or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Plus 15 years ago. I'm old.
It's okay, you don't look old.
But it was cool. I mean, I really liked what I realized as I got further along, like early on in Bible college, it was like everything was new. And so it was like, man, look at this. I never thought about that before. Mm-hmm. And also at that age too, you kind of think that you know it all. So then it was all like I just want to do ministry, but all this stuff's really cool, but like I just want to do ministry.
Yeah.
And then as I got older and like I went back to college when I was 25, 26. I had the opportunity to go back at like a discounted rate because I was on staff at a church that like,
Nice.
So anyway, so I went back, and when I did, I'd preached out of the Bible for 52 weeks a year for 4 years straight kind of thing. And like, there's some understanding and some wisdom that comes with all of that. Yeah. And so by the time I kind of got there, it was like I would graduate a class and I'd be like, hey, there's like one or two things. I'd spend the whole semester, and really there was like one or two things that were really a big deal from each class. And I'm like, man, I just paid $2,500 to learn one thing. Mm-hmm. But you never know what that thing is.
Exactly.
And those things are always like monumental. And so I was like, I realized that like when you spend a lot of money on a workshop, when you go to like a retreat and you're like, hey, I'm going to learn all this stuff, you may spend 3 days at a conference, but if you walk away with one thing, it's money well spent, because that one thing could change the trajectory of your life.
It's funny you said that too, because I was talking to Alexis last night, and we were talking about that concept of school, like, because I was telling her a concept I had learned about communications, and she was saying she was like mentioning that it's crazy that I learned that concept outside of school, and she learned the same concept in school, but she said it comes with the minutia. You know, they had to like pack the course to make it seem like you're getting your money's worth on top of, you know, because you got to pay for it.
Yep.
And it's like, it's crazy. Like, it reminds me of that concept of like they said that there's like 20% of what you do that actually dictates 80% of the results. And it's like that one, when I think about that one thing you actually get, I feel like that'd be a better experience. You get that one thing that will actually do something for you instead of getting like all this minutia that you're like sifting through. Like, which one is that? Like, what's actually makes sense?
So real. I think the only thing I can think that maybe justifies it is that you have to build a foundation for that one thing, right? Like, because if this is me coming around the other side, right? So like the devil's advocate on that would be that like there are some things that you can understand, like the main thought without all the rest, but it's not going to stand. But if you want like, hey, this is going to stand, like I get it. I'm not just gonna be like, whatever. Like, there has to be some foundation built around that. Okay. And so maybe that's the concept, you know. And I think as a preacher, like I'm always thinking too, like, hey, how am I laying this foundation to set up what I'm about to say? Because really, like, most of what I'm trying to say could be summed up in like past my opening statements in like that first 2 minutes, and then like the last 5 minutes is usually like that's. As far as like the point of what I'm getting to, hey, how do we apply this to our lives? It's right there. But like the scripture lays out like the foundation of why that matters.
Okay. So it definitely seems like Bible college did make a major impact.
It was helpful.
Yeah.
It was worth the money when I looked back. While I was doing it, I was like, this is stupid.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like most people in school probably feel that way.
Yeah.
So let me ask you then, like, from now you're 22, what do you do after you graduated? Like, what was that next step?
Yeah, so I got my AA. Yeah, my plan was to like just lay low and play video games and help out at my church and finish my BA. Okay. And so I was like, dude, I'm just gonna live the college life, take a couple years and chill. Oh. But
things took a turn.
Yeah. Well, there was an opportunity at a church in Santa Clara with a pastor that was from the church that I had interned at. And I went out there to interview kind of as I'll go check this thing out. Like, I'm not going to try to stay. Yeah. And while I was there, like, I was fasting, and I just felt like the Lord spoke so strong in my heart, like, hey, this is where you need to be. And I was like one of those where you feel it to tears, you know? Okay. And so I looked at him while I was out there, like in my interview. I said, I was praying this morning, and I just felt like the Lord told me that this is where I need to be. So I just want you to know, like, I mean, obviously you got to feel that too, but like, I'm in. Yeah. And, a week later he called me and said, hey, all right, we want to hire you. Nice. And so that was a big shift. Honestly, I was super sad because I was excited to play video games.
Like a part of you was like, maybe I'm wrong. But
because with internship, the way we did internship, it was like a full-time job. And so, you did college and a full-time job for me, it was 3.5 years. Okay. And so I was like, dude, I finally just live college life and chill. Okay. And so I grieved a little bit, like, I don't get a vacation, Okay. But I got to step into, my dream. Yeah. So can't argue with that. Exactly.
Nice. So So now you're in ministry, or you're interning in ministry?
So when I finished up like that Bible college piece and internship there, I was in ministry as a youth pastor. Okay.
So at what point do you start working towards being a pastor?
That was like internship. So my internship was a pastoral internship. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was interning for ministry. So it was out of youth ministry.
So you're always going to be a pastor.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it's all kind of connected in that. So that sense of like, hey, like I'm called to be a pastor, that goes all the way back to like I was like in kindergarten.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. So like my dad was an associate pastor at our church, and like my hero, and I loved the church and I loved God. Like it was just kind of like in me. Like I used to watch certain televangelists and stuff, and I'd be like, I want to be them when I grow up. Now I look, I'm like, some of that stuff was really sketchy. Yeah. But like But anyways, but it wasn't about all that. It was like the fact that, like, I saw them ministering and people's lives being touched, and I was like, man, I want to be a part of that. Like, I want to do that when I grow up. And like, even in kindergarten, you know, they'd be like, hey, draw a picture of you doing what you want to do when you grow up, and I drew like me preaching.
Yeah,
you know?
nice.
Yeah,
that's actually really like. I think that's really, you know, it, because I feel like that has a lot more meaning. You know, most kids are like firefighter, police officer, like things that they, you know, see. Yeah. And I think it has, you know, you could tell you're more serious because you didn't have like a generic thing. It's like if you put pastors, like it's not like you just like anything. Let me think of anything. It's like no, that's something like interesting.
100%, dude. And it was like from all of that. So like the whole music thing was like, that was a dream that came later, and I was like, maybe I could do that and this. But there was always like this internal, like, man, like I feel like this is what I was made for. Like this is the purpose God placed on my life kind of thing. As a believer, obviously, like I'm like, man, God puts purposes in our life.
Oh wow.
And I was like, man, this is what I'm created for.
Okay. So now let's get into the launch. So how does you said there was a book that you read.
Yeah.
What was that book?
Launch.
It was called Launch.
Yeah, it's called Launch.
And who was it by?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
I don't remember, but it's a good book.
We'll get it.
It's a classic in church planting.
Okay.
If you look up, you can Google like Launch church planting book. It'll come up.
It'll
guaranteed.
come up?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got a chair on the cover.
And you said that was gifted to you by?
It was gifted to me by one of the leaders for our denomination.
Okay. And so I want to understand like what was the mindset of like why? 'Cause I know you said at first you were going to just just basically like work with a church that's already been established. Yeah. Like, do you understand why it was a reason why they'd rather you plant a church instead of start up already?
Well, this denominational leader, he's in charge of church planting, so he wanted me to church plant because he's in charge of it. You know? Yeah. But I think when I look at, for me personally, like why that instead of going to an established church, because obviously an established church is like a guaranteed salary, health benefits, like all that's kind of there. But for church planting, like none of that's guaranteed.
Yeah.
But one, there was a sense of like, man, like we can reach people that we couldn't reach if we were just starting a church, or if we were just doing a turnaround kind of context with the church. And then two, like we had been in a few churches that had been in that turnaround context, and it was rough. And I'd seen like what the leadership went through and stuff, and I was like, man, do I really want to spend the next 5 to 10 years like pushing up against an elder board that's mad at me?
Oh wow.
Or could we go ahead and just start something fresh and believe God to do something special?
Yeah.
And end up having a greater reach earlier with the people that we want to reach, which is like the outsiders, the person who wouldn't show up to a church normally.
Okay. Because
we didn't want to just be traditional in how we go about church.
Okay. So you get this idea for launching a church. Who's the first person you tell?
I talked with Michelle about it. Like that's kind of where you start, right?
Yeah.
Start with my wife. Yeah, so I talked with her first, and she was like, all right, well, whatever. I don't think so, but whatever.
She's like, okay,
yeah, why don't we
sleep on it?
Yeah.
Sleep on it a little bit.
Yeah, what she really meant was like, nah.
Yeah.
And then, honestly, I didn't really talk to anybody about it. I have a friend that's like connected with church planting a little bit, and so I talked to him and was like, hey, man, like, I don't know, I'm like looking into it, I'm thinking about it. He pointed me to some resources to check out. And so I watched a few videos and stuff from an organization called ARC that has like Association of Related Churches, and they have like some basic training, and I had access to some of those videos, and so I was like looking at some of that to just get a greater feel.
Yeah.
And but that was kind of like, I didn't really talk to anybody about it until we got a little further in.
Okay. So now you have this idea to plant a church. How long from that idea to then like action? I know there was like, I believe you went to Washington, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So our path is not linear.
Yeah, exactly.
It was not like A to B. So I read this book, and it was just, man, maybe this is what we're going to do. I'm staying up at night. I'm reading, doing research, all that kind of stuff. And then Michelle was not down. Partially because we were still working through a lot of stuff in our marriage at the time. And, like, we had a lot of work to do.
Okay.
And she knew it, and she was like, dude, I ain't messing with all that. Because it's church planting is hard on family and marriage. And so she was like, dude, I'm not going to go in like this. And so we had gone to a conference for our denomination, and there was a church planting like lunch, and I was like, this is the chance. Like, she's going to come with me to this church planting lunch, and God's going to speak to her heart, and she's going to be like, I'm in, you know?
Yeah.
And then one of the kids got sick, and she wasn't able to
go. Like, man, what's going on here?
And so the crazy part is about that time, you know, I'm walking back, and I'm depressed. I'm like, God, you know, you put this thing in my heart, but, like, she's not even here, you know?
Yeah, no, right.
And, but I knew, like, our marriage needed help too. And so, like, I just felt like the Lord spoke to my heart. And, like, man, I need to stop reading about church planting and leadership. And I need to start really putting that same amount of effort into my marriage.
Okay.
And so, so I stopped by, we were at a denominational conference, so I stopped by, like, a marriage booth.
Okay.
And I bought $150 of marriage curriculum.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm going all in with marriage right now. And so,
you said how much?
$150 of marriage curriculum. Like, I bought every book the man had.
Yeah.
And his video curriculum. You know? Like,
yeah, like, that's, man, that's a lot. Like, what does that look like? Like, is that
it
like
was like multiple workbooks, and then a couple sets of books, and then there was another book, and then there's, you know, like, and then he gave us a gift bag.
Yeah. I mean, I hope, like,
you better give me a gift bag.
A little gift bag with a sticker on the side. We're working on it. I think that'd be a good thing for a business.
The book was called Never Settle for Good Enough.
Okay.
And anyway, so we started going through that. Every Monday we would have breakfast together. And so I told you, it's not linear.
Yeah, yeah.
It's this, like, roundabout way, because God had to work on us to even get us to the point where we were healthy.
Okay.
You know? And so, anyways, that, like, really healed our marriage. We spent breakfast together for weeks, just working through this thing and just talking and, like, reconnecting. And a few months later, there was a church planter that came to our church and, like, spoke, and there was a video that he showed that was, like, it was really impactful. It was a powerful video.
Okay.
And Michelle looks at me with, like, tears in her eyes, and she's like, you have to plant a church. And I was like, baby girl, that is a good video.
Show that video more often.
I'm like, let's see how you feel in a week, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so we ended up going on a prayer. We already scheduled it. We went on a prayer retreat.
Okay.
And God just spoke again to me. She was like, I know God spoke to me. So she didn't need to hear again.
Exactly.
But for me, like, I need to hear again, because by that point I had let go of the dream. I was like, God, like, I'm going to take care of my wife. I'm going to take care of my marriage. And, like, so if we never get to this other thing, like, I'm cool. Like, we're all right. And, but then when God spoke to her heart, it kind of reignited everything and started the train again. And so that was kind of that restarting. And then it was about a year later before we actually ended up in D.C.
Okay.
And that was because we went to a church planting conference. Again, like, God speak to us. We want to make sure that this is what you're calling us to do, because church planting is hard.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work for everybody.
Exactly.
And
I can imagine.
Yeah, and we could go bankrupt in the process. Like, I don't want to do that and let everybody down, you know? And so so we were trying to, like, really, like, God, we want to make sure when we're talking to church planters all over the place, like, hey, tell us all the horror stories so we can, like, make sure that we really want to do this.
Okay.
And anyways, we're at this conference, and we met Mark Batterson, who's the pastor at National Community Church.
Okay.
Where we ended up going and doing the program.
Okay.
And that just kind of began a conversation over the course of another 9 months. We moved to D.C.
Okay.
And spent a year there training before moving back to Sacramento 9 months ago now to actually start the church.
Wow. If there's one word that can sum up Caleb's story, it's definitely sacrifice. From giving up his spot in the band to pursue ministry, to using his leisure time to start working at an already established church. Heck, he even gave up the dream of starting a church to focus on his marriage. Caleb has been faced with some very, very tough decisions that would cause most people to fold under pressure. But in the end, through his own intuition and guidance from his relationship with God, he has been able to think clearly and make precise decisions that have always served him best. Now, let's listen to see where those sacrifices finally led him.
And so how long So how long have you been in SAC starting the launch?
Since January 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
How was that experience when you were in Washington D.C.?
Amazing.
Was it like?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you went in there with any like misconceptions or I already had like an idea what it was gonna be like, but was it a pleasant surprise?
You know, I had no idea what it was going to be like. What's interesting, we moved there 3 weeks after January 6th.
Okay.
So, like, the city's still kind of reeling off of that, obviously. And so it's just an interesting time to move in. And then it's still in the middle of COVID. And so we were planning, like, by then California had started opening up, but D.C. was still completely shut down.
Oh, wow.
And so we started off the program, like, over Zoom. And we moved from, like, a 2-bedroom house with, like, a big backyard in the burbs, you know, to a condo, I guess, like on the 6th floor of a 15-story building.
Oh wow!
And like it was culture shock, bro. The first couple weeks, and people were pretty rude. Like you don't get that. Like West Coast, there's a hospitality that goes with that a little bit. There's an openness. People take care of you, not on the same level as like the South, but like it's like West Coast.
Yeah.
On the East Coast, dude, like it's just not the same. Like your waitress doesn't come by and fill up your drink unless you ask. Like
she's like, "Do you not see I'm busy?"
We couldn't find a good breakfast place.
Yeah.
Like it was just like. but it was culture shock, bro.
Yeah.
And then, what ended up happening though is that like over time, we just began to like adjust to it, and as things began to open up and we were around people, any place that you are, it's all about the relationships you have, like how you feel about that place. It's not really like some of it's the place, a lot of it's the relationships. It's how the people make you feel.
Okay.
And so we developed some great relationships, and then DC has a lot of free stuff. Like so, we're like going to the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
We're out at all the
Smithsonian's free?
Yeah, it's free.
Wow, I never would have guessed that was free.
Bro, I mean, if you can fly to DC, then you get free activities.
So that sounds like a worth the trip.
They had like outdoor pools that are free and stuff too, that are like on
Nice.
public, like they're in the middle of a park. Like it's pretty dope, like some of the stuff.
Wow.
And then it snowed, and like we don't get snow out here, like.
Yeah.
So it was like those kind of things, and at the same time, I was like, we had one car. 2 kids. When we moved, we had a puppy. The puppy didn't come home with us. We found a new home for that puppy.
I bet. It's not a lot. This is not a lot of room for a puppy.
Bro, the first 3 months, I was like, all that I do all day is try to work and then clean up pee.
Yeah.
Like that's it. And it was puppy pee and my son.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Like,
trying to potty train.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm just wiping up pee all day long. But but what was cool is that over time, like you figure out how to make things work, right? So like. Michelle would take off to work, and then I would ride the bus with Josiah to his school and like drop him off at school via like the public transit system. And then I would hop on another bus that would take me to the metro. And I'd ride the metro into the city to like go to the church so that I could work. And like, but it was like, hey, like we're going to do whatever we need to do. And I think like, when you look at even like church planting or entrepreneurship in general, like there's this aspect of like, hey, like there's going to be challenges and like, are we willing to work past them? And
that grit.
Yeah, it's the grit and it's the creativity and it's the like, it's all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of like, hey, like it allowed us to start taking bite-sized sacrifices and making bite-sized changes to our life.
Okay.
While not everything was on the line.
Okay.
And in the process, like all of that begins to form and shape your character. And so like I feel like I went to DC as one person. By the time I came back, I was a different person.
Different person. Okay. Like I said, that does mean. So now you go to DC, and you get. Like I said, I almost want to say like a boot camp, because that's the way you explain it is like almost like I'm trying to imagine like when you into DC, is it like you're shadowing somebody running a church? Like what's the biggest because I don't want to go maybe too deep into it because kind of give away the go do it yourself.
Yeah.
But like what's like one of the biggest skills you took away from there that
I would say this, like, so I didn't like shadow a specific person like everywhere they went, although that would have been pretty dope too. I'm more like I was invited into the room with decision makers, and then I helped to serve in launching new things.
Okay.
And so being in the room with decision makers is like you're watching people process difficult decisions, make calls, trickle information down from like in different levels to different people. And like that whole process of like, you know, from the time the idea was formed and went to like the high up decision makers all the way down to like it was announced on Sunday morning. I was able to watch that process with some very smart people and how they manage projects over the course of a year, all that kind of stuff. And it helped to create some realistic paradigms for leadership and how we can communicate over time and drive change within an organization.
Okay.
So that was massive. And then we helped to launch a campus out there too. We were on a team that launched a campus for the church. And so that was helpful too, to see like how the leadership handled different situations as you're in the middle of launching really a church.
Okay. So now you come back from Washington. First, let me address that. Like, I think that's really like cool. First of all, like I don't, like I said, I feel like most people probably don't ever think about the how to start a church. You know, like I think people think it's just the building and someone runs in there, but like I don't think they really think about the building that community aspect to like get people in those seats. Yeah. And I think it's really cool that there's like I won't say a course, but it's like there's like a like you said, like almost like an entrepreneur. There's like a way to go about learning those skills to then apply them. Yeah. And
we had like, it was like that program helped me on a lot of fronts, and it kind of gave some hands-on, right? And then at the same time, I was working with, I had gone to like a CMN, Church Multiplication Network, like launch training. And so they like outlined a whole bunch of stuff. I was reading books on church planting like constantly. And then there's an organization called Stadia Church Planting that like assigned me a coach that helped me to kind of work through like our plan. They did like fundraising training. Like there was a lot of like, like the amount of training that went into it was more than, you're right, like more than most people would think. It was more than I thought.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like, you know, I don't know, I picture like the Wild West, you know, like we're just starting a church, you know?
Yeah, exactly, right.
But there's...
Get people in the seats.
Yeah. But man, if it was that, we probably would have, it'd be me and Michelle in the church right now, probably. But we learned how to plan, organize, and man, I'm really grateful to these organizations, Stadia, Church Multiplication Network, and ARC, Association for Related Churches, like for investing in us, because we would have been lost, bro.
Okay. Yeah. So now, like I said, we went through this training, and now how many, 10 days? 11 days? 11 days from starting the church. Yeah. How was that? Like, was it, I don't want to say a breeze, I won't say that, but like, now that you have this training, like coming, landing in Sacramento and going through that process, how was that?
Yeah. You know, there's knowledge, and then there's like knowledge experienced. Man, we learned a lot.
I think that's pretty light, huh?
We learned a lot. You know, it's truthfully, like there's different levels of this, where on the strategy front, there's the grit front, there's the how are we engaging people and living intentionally front. There's the spiritual front. Do I trust God? Like, kind of all those things. And dude, like we went into this kind of like, hey, we're going to burn all the bridges and run straight in. And like, there's no plan B. And that was intentional, because like, if we have a plan B, we probably would go back, you know? But with no plan B, we got to search ahead. And so, yeah.
I think you said something really I want to touch on, because I feel like a lot of people, spiritual or not, can really like take away from this is like, how did you deal with that? Because you said I would say it definitely challenges your faith when you feel like this is something I'm supposed to do, and you see all the signs, but as you're doing it, there's also a lot of obstacles. Like
crazy amount.
How did you, like you said, not turn around and be like, you know what, I'm just gonna go be a pastor at that church in the middle of nowhere?
Make up your mind. I'll tell you, I mean, part of it for us, honestly, was that we support raised as well. So, like, there's people that have trusted us enough to say, we believe that you believe in your vision and you're going to follow through. And so here's money to help you with that vision. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to let these people down. There's no way I'm letting these people down. And so, like, that was a piece of it, you know, honestly. Like, it's like this, like, hey, like, there's people that count on us. Like, right now, we got a whole team of people that are helping us plant this church. And what does that say about God if we quit? You know, what does that say about the church and how trustworthy people are, and like, what does that say about them? Like,
they basically almost built like a support network, like a, what do they call it? I can't remember the term of it, but the term basically is somebody who keeps you accountable.
Yeah. So our why in all of this is like we do have the baked in mission. Like, hey, like we believe that God has a plan for Sacramento, and that like we want to be a part of it, and that God's called us to be a part of it. We believe that like as we plant a church in Oak Park, we're going to be building bridges, and this isn't just a church that's like for this neighborhood that's going to impact a couple people, but regardless of how many people come, that this is going to impact a city. Okay. And so like there's these pieces that are there that we're like, man, there's so much that's so much greater. Like our why is so far beyond us. Okay. That is like, dude, we've got to go all in.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting.
Yeah. And then the other side is we have a lot of accountability.
Okay.
Because people have trusted us. And so when you have people who trust you, there's a different like weight of like, this can't fail. One, because like, I mean, honestly, we've put our whole selves into this. Like, again, no plan B. Like our savings is locked up in this. Like not all of it, but like a lot of our savings has been invested into this.
Exactly.
A good chunk. And then like we've invested our lives into this, people. So like we're not going to turn back, because there's accountability and all of that too. And we've made the choice. I think there's what my generation, I think Gen Z too, like at times can like struggle with is, one, Gen Z is all about causes, which I love. And so it's like, hey, let's sell out for a cause, right? And if it's a worthy cause, that's worth it. Yeah. But I feel like I still see people like always looking for like, what's my backup plan? I'm playing this side game over here. I'll be fine regardless. And like at the end of the day, I know I'll be fine regardless. Like if everything fell apart, like we'd be all right. We'd figure it out, because I work hard. I'm determined. Like God's got us. Exactly. Like we're going to be fine regardless. But I don't have like some side thing on the side. Like, oh, I'll be all right because I got this other plan over here. Nah, heck no, dude.
Yeah.
But when we have these things, it's too easy to turn. So when things get hard, we're like, oh, it's fine. You know, I'm just going to go do something else. Yeah. And so we miss like the some of the best stuff is after some of the hardest work and the hardest seasons.
It reminds me of, it's a book called The Dip. And I don't know if have you read it?
I've heard of it.
Yeah. So the dip, basically the concept that I want to talk about is like, they talk about the dip is like, there's like this like crescendo basically of like effort you have to put in.
Yep. And
people usually give up at the like, almost at the point, like basically if you just went a little bit longer, you would see the results for your work.
Yep.
But like I said, it's one of those things where your why means a lot. You're accountable, you know, how you're accountable, because you know, you get to that point, it's like you ask yourself, I think everybody gets to that point, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? And if you don't have a solid foundation of why you're doing it, you're gonna back out, like
100%. I mean, one of the things that's helped us too is we have a timeline that's laid out, and we know like, hey, we're going to hit these marks. Yeah. So like we know launch day is coming, and we're working towards it. And so it's not like this indefinite, like, oh, at some point we'll do this. I had a coach, because we were toying with the idea of like, hey, do we like have this kind of optional date? Like, hey, depending on how many people are on our team, we might scoot it back, like whatever. And our coach told us, he said, man, like you just need to make the hard date. And like then you work towards it, and your team will work towards it, and you guys will get there. But if you keep scooting it back, you'll never make it.
Exactly.
And so hard dates, they help.
Yeah, that something about that deadline makes you do a lot more than you thought you could.
Date it, define it, do it.
That I love that right there.
I don't know about you guys, but I didn't have the slightest clue on what it takes to start a church. But after hearing Caleb's story, you realize the process really isn't that much different from starting any other kind of project, or a business for that matter. First, you need a plan. Then you need to gather resources and knowledge to carry out that plan. And after that, you then have to execute on what you've learned. Because as you heard Caleb say, there's knowledge, and then there's knowledge experience. So no matter what you do, you still have to make a plan, do the research, tell people about what you plan on doing, but don't get stuck there. There's a point where you have to take those first steps and begin the process, because that's where the real lessons begin. And make sure before you take that step that your mind is made up, because those lessons come with major challenges that can only be overcame if you truly believe there's no other alternatives. Speaking of lessons and challenges, my laptop cut out towards the end of this recording, so for those watching the video version, I have to apologize. I have to end it here as the audio I use from the camera has music in the background. But if you want to hear the end, check out the link in the description for the audio version of this episode. You'll get a bunch of value as Caleb begins to describe how he balanced the church and his home life. And while you're there, subscribe while you're at it. I also like to thank Caleb for being my first guest. You can find him on Instagram at Caleb Crew. That's at CALEBCRE. And make sure to check out his church page at The Hope Community. I also like to thank you guys for listening to this first episode of the Creative Balance Show, and I hope you got a bunch of value out of it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe for future episodes. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one.